and play on 2nd and 10. That's his youth right there.
Tagovailoa trying to make up for it. Fires to the end zone. Touchdown! Alabama wins!
So today I'll be reacting to week 13 of the 2025 college football season. So I watched most of the Oklahoma-Missouri game, and Bo Prabila surprisingly played, but it didn't matter for Oklahoma because their defense controlled the game. They struggled on their first defensive possession. But then after that, it was almost a complete shutdown. They gave up a few big passes to Kevin Coleman, but other than that, it was a complete shutdown. And while I'm sure Bo Prabila wasn't fully healthy yet, Missouri's got as good of an offensive line and running back room as anybody Oklahoma's played all year, and Oklahoma's defensive line dominated them. Missouri couldn't handle their pass rush. Oklahoma got 4 sacks in this game, and still without R. Mason Thomas. And they shut down the run, holding Missouri to just 70 yards rushing on 35 runs. Ahmad Hardy couldn't get any big runs. He had 57 yards, but that was on 17 carries. He only averaged 3.4 yards per carry. Oklahoma did an even better job of stopping Missouri's run game than I thought they would. But I'd say this confirms that no one's going to be able to run the football on Oklahoma. But the problem for Oklahoma was that they still couldn't get the offense going in the run game or in the passing attack. And they still got outgained by Missouri. They were held to just 276 yards of offense. And 87 of those yards was that touchdown catch by Sigtania. If it wasn't for Sigtania, they wouldn't have hardly any offense at all. While I know Missouri has a pretty good defense themselves, with as much talent as Oklahoma has on offense, you would think they'd be able to have played a solid game of offense at least once for a whole game this season. And in the first half, I thought their offense had done pretty well, scoring 14 against Missouri, and I thought maybe this is finally the game that they do it. But then in the second half, their offense was almost non-existent. At least they do have a really good kicker, because the last thing you'd want when your offense is already bad is to also have trouble kicking field goals. But imagine if Oklahoma had this defense to go with those offenses they had under Lincoln Riley with the Heisman quarterbacks. They'd be unbeatable. It'd be the best team ever, because while the Joe Burrow LSU team, I'd say, is the best offense I've ever seen, not even they had a defense this good. Florida, I guess, thanks to get Lane Kiffin, they just had to play hard against him, and then the rest of the time they can play like a group of five team, which is what they really are. They're just disguised as an SEC team. They got Tennessee at home, and Tennessee at home for Florida has been a win always for so long, but they got blown out 31 to 11, only 11 points against what's been one of the SEC's worst defenses was pitiful. And it was over at halftime. Tennessee didn't even try to score in the second half, or they probably would have won this one by 40. Kiffin would have to be dumber than a bag of dead batteries to go to Florida. And I saw an announcement on his future is going to come the day after the Egg Bowl. While I'm not saying he's leaving Ole Miss because of this, because this same thing happened 3 years ago when Auburn was trying to hire him. If he wasn't at least considering leaving, I don't think he would have waited to announce that he's staying. But I'd say Florida is probably out for Lane Kiffin. But I'm pretty sure now it's either going to be he stays at Ole Miss or he goes to LSU. But whether if he leaves or stays, I do think Ole Miss should still let him coach in the college football playoff. But if you think that it for sure means that he's leaving because Ole Miss is waiting to announce his future until after the Egg Bowl, just so it won't affect the team's performance in the Egg Bowl, I think you're wrong because I'm pretty sure that if he's decided that he's leaving, that his players already know about it. But I think that the Tulane coach is going to get hired by one of these SEC teams. John Sumrall. He's now got Tulane at 9-2, with a good chance to go to the college football playoff. He's one of the best group of five coaches right now. This is his second season at Tulane. In his first season there, he won 9 games, taking over for Willie Fritz, who had just got Tulane their two best seasons ever in a row. And he's also been the head coach of Troy before Tulane for 2 seasons. While they're in the Sun Belt only, he did win the conference both years that he was there, going 12-2 in the first year and 11-2 in the second year. And he's got experience as an assistant coach in the SEC. He was the linebackers coach at Ole Miss for a year, and then the same thing at Kentucky for the 3 years after that. So I think he's going to be a pretty good hire for one of these SEC teams. My guess would be that he goes to Auburn. I watched most of the Oregon USC game, and it went exactly how I thought it would. The difference was Oregon was just too good for Southern Cal at the line of scrimmage. Southern Cal couldn't stop the run. Oregon ran for 180 yards, and their offensive line was full of injuries. Isaiah World, one of their starting tackles, who's going to be a first round draft pick, was hurt, and their starting center, Ipana Lalola, got hurt early in the game and didn't return. He's likely going to be a first round draft pick too. So that just shows that Oregon's got depth on their offensive line. And Dante Moore, I thought played great at completing 73.3% of his passes for 257 and 2 touchdowns. And that was without his two best wide receivers, DeCorian Moore and Gary Bryant. And Oregon shut down the run for Southern Cal. USC only had 61 yards rushing and averaged only 2.3 yards per run. But Jaden Mayava, I thought, played really well, throwing for 308, and he did throw 2 interceptions, though, which was bad. But I really am not surprised that Mayava had a good game because even though Oregon's secondary, going by yards given up, is the best in the country going into this game, if you have an elite quarterback and wide receivers going against an elite secondary, the offense usually does win that battle. But if you've got a really good offensive line going against a really good defensive line, the defensive line usually wins that battle. But even though Southern Cal's playoff hopes are over, I'm pretty sure now Lincoln Riley's going to keep his job because with UCLA being their final game, it's very likely they're going to go 9-3. And while if you're Southern Cal, you're wanting for more than that, obviously, with the success they've had in the past. you can't really fire him for going 9-3. And Oregon, as long as they don't get upset against Washington, they're for sure in the college football playoff. But if they do get upset, then I'd say they're a 50-50 chance to go. But I watched Georgia Tech and Pittsburgh last night, and Georgia Tech had a chance to secure themselves a spot in the ACC championship for the first time in 11 years, but instead got upset 42-28. They played non-existent defense at the beginning. Pittsburgh scored 4 touchdowns on their first 4 possessions, and their offense played equally as bad at the beginning. Haynes King had his worst half of football probably all season in the first half. Now, after that, they did turn it around on both sides of the ball, but it was too late at that point. That pick six by Haynes King in the red zone might have cost them the game because that could have been the difference of 14 points. But
He'll throw again on 3rd and goal. And his pass is intercepted. It's picked off by Lovelace. He might run it back. Lovelace is gone. What an incredible turnaround.
Georgia Tech, they've fallen apart, and your season is over because you now have no chance of going to the ACC championship, and you're going to lose to Georgia next week, no doubt about it. So that's going to put you out of the college football playoff. If Virginia beats Virginia Tech next week, which I think they will, they're for sure going to the ACC championship. And if Pittsburgh beats Miami, which I'd say that's a 50-50 game, and SMU beats Cal, which I think they will beat Cal, but it would become a either way for those two teams to get a spot in the ACC championship because they would both have 3 overall losses, but only 1 conference loss, and they haven't played each other. So I watched not much of the Texas-Arkansas game, only saw a few plays of it, but that final score didn't surprise me at 52-37. Because Arkansas is the worst team in the SEC because they have the SEC's worst defense by far. An SEC team could score 30 points on Arkansas in their sleep. Really, any Power 4 team could. But their offense has actually been good. It's one of the SEC's best offenses, but their secondary has especially been bad. You know it's bad if they let Arch the Bum Manning throw for 389 yards and 4 touchdown passes on them. But while it's becoming pretty sure now that Bobby Petrino isn't going to get the permanent job as the head coach because he hasn't won a game since he's been the interim head coach. Whoever the new head coach is going to be, it should offer him to stay as their offensive coordinator if they're smart because he has done a really good job there with their offense. And Penn State played for the first time all year like they were supposed to, destroying Nebraska 37-10. They ran really well for 234 yards. And at 5-6, if Penn State does beat Rutgers next week, which I think they will, and get to a bowl game, I really think that interim head coach, Terry Smith, should probably at least get an interview for the permanent head coaching job because he's been with Penn State since James Franklin first got there in 2014 as the cornerbacks coach, and he does seem to really want to be at Penn State. But that'll be it with this video. Please subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon.